Thank you so much for joining in with us this afternoon as we talk to you about, where's my clicker?
It's on the screen.
Oh, there we go. I'm supposed to have a clicker.
This is going perfectly.
All right.
Just like we planned.
Okay, so we're going to be chatting with you guys about delivering email programs at every size. Whether you're a one-person email show, or you have a large dedicated team, or maybe you're somewhere in the middle. And hopefully you guys feel like this is a really relevant topic, as I know everybody in this room represents teams of many different structures, many different sizes, each of which present their own kind of unique advantages and disadvantages. So we're going to talk to you about our team sizes and how we get our jobs done using the resources that we have. All right, let's meet our panel. So I'm Anna Warner. I'm the Director of Customer Retention with Belk. So congratulations to whoever just won the gift card. Yay! How many people have been to a Belk? All right, a pretty good amount. So Belk is a major department store. We're headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we have about 300 store locations, a rapidly growing e-commerce business. We're located in about 16 southern states, and we've been around for about 130 years, so we're a very long-standing company. And in my role at Belk, I am responsible for our email program, of course, along with our other customer retention programs, including our SMS, text messaging, and our app push. Next.
So I'm Kayla Beck. I'm the Senior Manager of Email Delivery and Quality Control at Southwest Airlines. I'll one-up you. How many people have flown a Southwest flight? How many of y'all are tier members? Okay, well, a few of you. So I'm actually responsible for 3 teams at Southwest Airlines. As my name suggests, there's like 2 of them. So the email delivery team is responsible for end-to-end email delivery, so that encompasses the actual execution of the campaigns as well as deliverability, that whole kit and caboodle. I have a quality control team that is responsible for QCing every customer-facing communication that we send, everything from paid media to banners, to emails themselves. And then I have a database solutions team that is responsible for pulling channel audiences.
Hi, I'm Emily McLawn. I am the email strategist at the National Association of Realtors. We are an association of realtors, shocking, and we send out 120 million emails per year, but I'm representing the one-person email team. I don't know if it's entirely accurate to say that I'm all on my own. We have at least 40 different people that send out emails through our organization, through Adestra, our platform. I'm just the one that sort of manages all of those emails and makes sure they go out correctly. I offer strategy advice. I work with the database teams to make sure data's coming in correctly, and I try to improve those emails. We're trying to move those emails over to a digital production team and send everything through Jira. So that we have a better workflow and our emails are more centralized and better put together, and I'll be in charge of all that entire process.
All right, so we're going to start with a quick audience poll to find out how many people you guys have on your teams on average. So if you'll go open your laptops or cell phones, go to polleverywhere.com/EIQ 2019. Let us know how many people you have on your team, and then you'll see the results pop up on the screen as you guys enter your info. All right, let's see. Got lots of 2 to 4s.
Wow, 10.
Lots of one-person teams. 5 to 9. All right. All right. So looks like about half are going to be in that 2 to 4 range, which is interesting. If we look at what the industry standard is, I'll go to that next. All right, so you 2 to 4 team size groups of people on average, brands have nearly 8 employees working on their email programs. More than 26% use at least one freelancer, and nearly 34% use an agency. And these stats come from Litmus, which is where I get all my facts. So if you guys are in the less than 8 people category, I'll leave this up for a second. I'll let you take a picture. You can send it to your boss. Let me know how that goes. But yeah, it looks like about 8. Going off of that, knowing industry average is about 8 people, we're going to talk to you guys about our email programs, our team sizes, campaign volume, and how we leverage various resources to get our job done. You want to kick off?
Yeah, so I like to joke that our email program is a little bit like McDonald's because we have billions and billions of emails served every year. And our email team is pretty big. So I have 5 dedicated email developers who report to a manager on my team. Those quality control analysts I mentioned, I have 3 of those. And then the database analysts I have 3 of those who report to a manager as well. So pretty robust team to make the execution piece happen. But across the organization, whenever I got invited to join this panel, I literally had to pull up an org chart and count every single person in marketing who has something to do with email, and I lost track after 40. I mean, it's a really massive enterprise, everything from the channel planning and the channel orchestration down to literally our partners, our external partners that we work with, like Points.com, Rapid Rewards Shopping. It just takes a really big enterprise to make email work at Southwest Airlines.
I already described that we did about 120 million emails per year, but in terms of the actual number of emails that go out each month, we have about 100 or so. We have a daily email that goes out through our magazine team, and yes, we still have a print magazine, and that's where quite a few of the emails and their content comes from. That we have so much content that comes from the magazine that we're able to leverage it quite a bit in terms of not needing to have copywriters for all of our emails. And since I'm representing the small team, not having copywriters is very useful. We also have the digital production team that is going to be an invaluable resource coming up soon as we get them to actually program the emails. Programming the emails doesn't take terribly long, and we have all of our templates sort of pre-designed and loaded into the system. So as long as we don't have a new email, it's pretty easy to just drop the content in and get it out, and we're able to get content done or emails done within an hour versus hundreds of hours, which it's taken us in the past.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, Belk has been around for 130 years, so that's a pretty long time, and we've amassed a fairly sizable subscriber base, as you can imagine. And from a sort of campaign volume perspective, we probably send between our triggers, our automations, our transactional mailings, and our regular kind of everyday promotional campaigns, close to 100 campaigns a month. So it's a lot, and a lot of those are, like I said, triggered and automated, but the other ones, a lot of them are still manually curated by our creative team. And so it really takes a village to get that many campaigns out the door, especially considering, so my direct team is 5 people. So I have a manager, I have 3 specialists, and a content coordinator. So we have to work extremely closely with our cross-functional partners, from the creative team to the merchants to our product and development teams to get all those campaigns executed. And then we also rely heavily on our agency partners as well to help sort of add to our bench. And the other thing that makes us very successful in getting emails executed on time and accurately is we have very strict processes that we have put in place. So we do all of our creative briefing on the same day every week. Our creative approvals take place at the same day, same time every single week. And so it's a very structured process that involves a lot of people. And without that process, it would really be difficult, if not impossible, to run a program of that scale.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of jump off on that, whenever you do have a bigger organization or a lot of people who touch the email program, it is seriously integral to have processes in place and clear timelines, as well as like the tools and technology to support those types of things. So something that Southwest has really invested in over the past couple of years.
Great. All right, next question. What are your team's major priorities for 2019, and how will that impact your resource needs?
Our team needs to get everything together. We are very disorganized in terms of our data is not great. We haven't had any type of workflow process until this year. Literally this month, as of like, I got my first Jira ticket last week. We are definitely behind the times in terms of getting everything up to speed. So while I love to say that we're really working on cutting edge technology and trying to make our emails more modern, when you have a small email team, you really have to get your support system, your base in place before you can really go to sort of that next level. And while I explore next level technologies, I really want to integrate videos into our emails, for example. It's really difficult to do when we're not even able to target super effectively based on the data that we have in our system right now.
Yeah, if you were in the gathering earlier, whenever the gathering room when I was with ReturnPath, I had the opportunity to talk a little bit about the ESP migration that we just completed at the end of January, which was like 3.5 years of work that I put under my belt. So it was really exciting to be done with it. But our biggest priority right now is taking advantage of that platform. I think whenever you move a team into a new tool, there's a ton of training that has to take place. There are a lot of tears, there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of newness. So with my team and my resources, it's really focusing on making sure that they have the right training in place so that we can really leverage the tool that we've moved into. And I think on a different note, where my head's really at, and I spoke about this a little bit earlier as well, but on just scalability, and being able to do a lot more with the same number of resources, which is probably something that most of the people in this room are really, really invested or really keen on right now, is how to get the most personalization, the most analytics, the best results, without necessarily having to increase the number of headcount that you have.
Yeah, for us, we're really all about personalization this year, and I know that is such a buzzword that we've been hearing for, it feels like forever now. But the truth is, at least in my opinion, there are not a ton of companies that are really doing a great job at it yet. And I've only been at Belk for 5 months, so when I came on board 5 months ago, the team there had already done a lot of really amazing work around retargeting based on consumer behaviors. And so if somebody was browsing the site or had recently shopped in one of our stores, we would then send them messaging related to their previous interaction with us. But like I said, we're still manually curating a lot of our everyday promotional campaigns, and we want to take relevancy to a whole new level with the everyday promotions that we're sending out. And if you've ever been to a Belk, you know they're large stores. We have thousands upon thousands of SKUs, and so when you think of personalization with that amount of, that large of a product catalog, it can feel very overwhelming. And our team is not expected to grow exponentially from a resources standpoint, yet we're taking on this massive undertaking of personalizing all of the campaigns that we're sending from the day-to-day. So we've thought about, we've evaluated our current vendor partnerships. What could we do with the relationships that already exist? Are there other vendor agencies out there that are doing this and doing it well who could help be an extension of our bench and an extension of our team and help us get this done easily without a lot of extra bandwidth needed from our team? And so that's sort of what we're embarking upon right now as we speak. So we're really excited about that. And then the second thing that we are focusing on, and again, this sounds foundational, but not a lot of people do it, is just testing and having a testing roadmap in place where we've documented, here are the things that we want to learn about our customers and how they interact with our various email messages, various product categories within emails, various promotional types. And so testing into that, and so we already actually put a testing roadmap together for the rest of the year. And on a weekly basis, we know what we're going to be testing. And we also are very focused on getting the KPIs, getting them quickly, learning as fast as we can, and then optimizing as quickly as we can so that we're embedding our learnings into our upcoming campaigns and not just testing, learning, and not doing anything about it. And we've already seen a lot of success with that. And if you guys want to come and talk to me after the panel, I would love to share with you guys some of the things we're doing and some of the testing wins that we've had recently. All right. All right, do you have any advice for how to hire the right staff or select the best agency partners to complement your teams?
I don't have staff.
That's okay.
Team of one are right here.
I think for me, so our company takes a strengths-based approach. So if anyone's familiar with StrengthsFinder, that's really important to our organization. But really, I think, especially whenever you're hiring for like email developers specifically, you have a tendency to look at people who are just really good at execution, like really good at deadlines and really good. And I have people like that on my team. But what I've found a lot of success in is by finding people with really complementary personalities. So as a quick example, and these two hear it all the time, but I have someone on my team who is like killer with execution. I mean, that chick, you give her a deadline and she's gonna kill it. But then I've got another guy on the team who's maybe not so great with those, but he's really innovative and wildly creative. So he's someone who lives up here and she lives a little bit more down here. She's a little more grounded. And they work together like you wouldn't believe. But if I were looking for an email developer who were really purely executional, I might lean towards someone who seems really good at these types of things rather than this kind of stuff. But he outputs the most incredible things. So by really focusing on the people that you have in the office and thinking whenever you're interviewing people or you're thinking about the right position to hire or what are those skill sets that you're looking for, really think about how to complement your current team and your current staff. And I think sometimes we tend to look for the unicorn who has all of the things we have in our head without taking into account how our team functions. And that has been absolutely integral to my team's success and really their happiness at work. I mean, I have a team of people that I go to happy hour with any day of the week. So that's been a really good thing for us on the team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. More on the agency side and selecting the right agency partners, I think no matter what type of partner you're looking for, just be very real with yourself about what your needs and requirements are. Sometimes we like to go with agencies or tools or systems or whatever because they're the shiny new thing, but then you get it and you have absolutely no plan for how to integrate it or how it's going to help you achieve your overall strategy. And so it's going to help you, it's going to help your agency if ahead of anything else, you outline, here's what we are trying to achieve with this partnership. Here's how we are going to measure success, and then hold yourself to that so that you have, the optimal relationship, and both parties are feeling like they're getting the most benefit out of the partnership.
Yeah, having really aligned KPIs with your agency is absolutely crucial. And in fairness to them, you want to be really upfront about how you measure success so that they can understand that. It sounds really simple, but it's not always so clear, especially if you're not used to working with agencies or not quite as familiar. Make sure that they understand how your CEO is going to consider success, right?
Okay. All right. So keep your questions coming. I think I forgot to mention this earlier, but we really, really want you to submit questions. So if you'll go to pollev.com/EIQ2019 and submit a question into the box, it'll come through on this nifty laptop that I have up here. I'll see the questions come through, and at the end, we'll select some to answer. And I know there are some of you in the audience who promised us that you would submit a question, and we remember who you are. So if no questions come in, we're going to come find you. All right. So guys, how do you convince a company to invest in the right resources? We know email is a really important channel, so it seems like it should be easy to get the resources and investment that we need, but we know that's not always the case. So how do you deal with that?
Our organization, email is the primary and most important communication channel with our members. We know this because we do a member communication survey every year, and we just got the results back literally 2 days ago, and nothing's changed. 86% of our members, our 1.4 million members, want us to email them, and about 70% say that we email them just the right amount, which is really good feedback to have. And I think that's a really valuable way to find out how to communicate with your customers, is to do some type of research. We have a whole research team at NAR that is responsible for that type of thing, but I know that not everyone is able to do that. But take existing research and bringing that to your boss and showing them that people want to be communicated via email. That's really helpful. We honestly have more of a problem convincing people not to email our members than getting them to email our members at our organization, because everyone's so excited to get their message out there. And we have 30 different teams that all have sort of different objectives at NAR. And as a result, we have a lot of different kinds of emails that go out, and keeping it cohesive and within our brand is the most difficult portion of my job.
So at Southwest, email is one of our biggest drivers, right? So in terms of convincing leadership that email is an important channel, that, for me, luckily, is not something that I have to do on a frequent basis. If I need to increase headcount, though, I have to prove my point, right? So that means I need to have done my due diligence in tracking how many hours it takes to complete campaigns, but I also need to have done my due diligence in ensuring that the tools and technologies that we have invested in, that I've made the most of those, that I've gotten the most efficiencies out of it. So, just don't ask your company for headcount that you maybe don't need if you could invest in some efficiencies in your own processes. But if you really do need it, ask for it and make sure that you have the data to support your argument. At the end of the day, that tends to convince leadership a lot more than anything else, is just having clear data for them. And then on a little bit of a different skew on it, the technology piece, convincing leadership that they should invest in a specific piece of technology. I'll give you an example. We're really good partners with Movable Ink. We love them. And we signed on with them like a year earlier, last year. And that took a little while to convince our leadership that it was something we really wanted to invest in. And the trick for me was finding a leader who I could get super passionate about it. And once I got her on board, it happens to be my direct leader. Once I got her on board, she was a huge champion for the product and loved it. And having her support, especially from a budget standpoint, was crucial. But being able to work, too, with those technology partners to help them tell you that, or tell your leaders the story of why their product is so valuable for you and your company is really, really important. And has led to a lot of success, even being able to partner with Movable Ink, which I'm thrilled to be able to do today.
Yeah, so when I feel like I don't get, or I don't have the resources that I need, I used to try whining about it. I perfected that technique, but way back in the day, it never worked, strangely enough. No, but in all seriousness, leaders like numbers. So if you can show what you're able to achieve today, ideally from an ROI perspective, with the tools that you do have and the resources that you do have, and then also show what you're leaving on the table by not having the extra staff or the extra tool, I think that's really what will speak volumes. And that is what has been most successful for me in my career, is saying, yes, we're currently achieving X, but we've done all of our, due diligence in forecasting out what this new type of email program would bring to the table from a revenue-driving perspective. And in order to make that happen, then we need to have an additional headcount, or we need to have this tool, which will cost X amount a year, but bring in, 12X in return. So I would say, if ever possible, just quantify it, put it on paper, get it in front of your leader, and have the conversation within that framework.
Yeah, and be super bold. If you happen to be a team of one and you feel a little bit intimidated to have that conversation, don't. If you're telling that story with data and explaining how long it maybe takes you to build an email and deploy it end to end, and how much money that email gained, I mean, you have every right to have that conversation with your leader, and a good leader will listen to that. They may not always be able to support you financially, but tell your story and be very bold in doing that. I know when I was younger in my career, someone asking me to do that would have terrified me, and now I have no problem asking for anything. But find that confidence and tell your story with data as much as you can.
Yeah, and don't give up just because you hear a no. Because you're not always going to get a yes. And you might put together the most amazing business case for something, and it still just can't happen for whatever reason. Your leader's not buying into it, or maybe it's not the right time. Don't be afraid to be creative. The answer might be sitting there within your existing resources, and you just don't realize it. So again, think creatively, leverage what you have, leverage your partnerships that you may have with your agencies, and you can probably figure it out. And whatever it is that you're trying to do, maybe you won't get all the way to your ultimate dream as quickly as you like, but that shouldn't stop you from at least trying, or at least getting part of the way, or getting something out the door. So don't let a no get you down. Definitely keep your head up and do what you can.
I frequently get a no when it comes to, when it comes to things like upgrading our database or doing certain types of work that it's not about the money for us. It's definitely about the fact that we don't have people at the organization with the bandwidth to do the work. If I offer to do something myself, I'm much more likely to get a yes and then given whatever budget I want. I don't always have the time to do that, but if I can delegate to people that do have the time, or find the right people to do the job and leverage the resources we have, as she pointed out, then it's much more likely something will get done if I'm willing to take charge and make it happen.
All right, so speaking of delivering at every size, which is the topic of our presentation, do you have any tips to ensure emails are reaching inboxes?
Yeah, so we partner with ReturnPath. I think I mentioned that earlier. I think I see them over there. We've been ReturnPath clients for quite a while, and even though our ESP, we just recently went through a migration, so I've had a couple, but even though they offer deliverability services, personally, I find a lot of value, no offense to the ESPs in the room, in having a third party who's completely independent to any of those relationships or potential biases. I think it's also really important to have those conversations with your ESP, so I'm very lucky that I have an incredible team at Adobe helping us do that, but I find so much value in working with them to be able to really get that inside view. And I'll tell you, we had a time a couple of years ago, not to be really excited about ReturnPath, but we had a time a couple of years ago where we hit like a blacklist, I think, and literally our ReturnPath guy was running across the office, like calling people like it was the newsroom or something. So they're really supportive of us in making sure that we can. And I'll also say that some of this stuff is really, really standard, but make sure you're cleaning those lists. We have really, really aggressive cleaning techniques and scrubbing techniques to make sure that we are doing our due diligence. We talk about deliverability every single week, every single day. We get alerts from ReturnPath. We are logging into the platform, looking at those results. It is top of mind because getting into inboxes is money for our company, and that's what I care about, right? So if you're not familiar with deliverability terms, or you have a third party who kind of does that for you, or maybe someone else does it, really take that responsibility upon yourself to be very, very educated in this space. So that way when things are happening, and they can happen really quickly, you can react more knowledgeably, and then also you can stay on top of it. So scrubbing your lists is very, very important. And then, of course, with all of the legislation coming up, you're going to want to be really, really close in on what's going on there so that you can stay compliant. But that's been really successful for us.
Yeah, my ReturnPath account manager was basically my therapist at one point. I would just lay on the couch and be like, they won't let me purge my inactives. What do I do? So that's my own plug for them.
So we, as I mentioned earlier, have a problem with people sending too much email. And specific instance of that was in January, we sent out a breaking news email that the IRS had released the tax rules for realtors. And we sent that to all members, which was 1.4 million people. And we had a considerable portion of them mark it as spam. That did not do good things for our deliverability. Luckily, I convinced leadership to never, ever, ever send an email like that again, and that all member emails need to be limited to a really small portion of our group, who should be able to send the all member emails. It needs to be either truly scary breaking news, or there has to be a very specific reason why we're emailing all members. Segmenting our lists is absolutely the way that we have been able to increase our deliverability, and sending highly targeted emails is the only way to really get open rates. All member emails almost always screw up our deliverability and us getting into the inbox, so I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay, how do you guys keep up with innovations within the industry? Let's say if you're a one-person show, so you probably don't have a lot of extra time, or you have a larger dedicated team, but that might mean you're not as involved in the day-to-day and what's going on. How do you guys keep up?
Going to email conferences helps. That's something that I learned about Phrasee, which is an AI-generated subject line, when I went to the Adestra conference in November. It was something that I've looked into pretty heavily. I learned quite a bit about different deliverability techniques, about different types of technologies that might help us. I meet new potential partners. It's really great. And there's usually conferences that in all areas. Maybe they're not specifically email-oriented, but there's marketing conferences. I used to use Feedly to sort of curate all of my email news, but I really don't have time to check that.
I'm more of like a reports junkie, so like Litmus puts one out, I'm like gonna download it and devour it really quickly. So that's how I really like to get most of my industry stats. But most of what I do is really networking. Literally exactly what you just said. Not to ditto, but ditto. Meeting people, and also if someone emails you from a company, I think there can be a tendency to be like, whatever, it's just a sales email. But if you take your time to read it and actually meet with a person, you can learn some really cool concepts that maybe you didn't even know existed. So I do a lot of that as well, as much as I have time for. I will say, though, that whenever I was the direct manager of the email team, this was not something that I was able to keep on my radar very much, so I feel for that a lot. My world was just keeping up with the day-to-day, and being able to be in the position I'm at now, there's a lot more expectation just in my role to be forward-thinking and to be able to build those relationships. So it's a little bit different, but man, 2 years ago was a very different experience for me, and it's a struggle. It's definitely a struggle.
Okay, well, we actually got a lot of questions. I'm very excited. So we have about 10 minutes left, so we're going to kick over to some of these amazing questions that you guys sent in. So here's a good one. So Emily, when you're working as a one-person show and the rest of the organization doesn't understand the value of email, what educational steps can someone take with a group that's resistant to change?
Our organization is definitely resistant to change. Luckily, email's been around for long enough that we don't have a problem convincing them that email is the way to go, but convincing them to use, we also migrated to a new ESP, and convincing them to use the new ESP and like get out of the old one was difficult. Basically, I just had to kick them out. Like, I just deleted all of their accounts. There really isn't a lot of, you have to force change sometimes, like when things need to move forward. And if you don't give people, it's nice to try to convince them and talk to them and show them all the stats, but in the end, if you're in charge of the email and you're a one-person email show and all emails go through you, then you also have the power to make sure that emails don't go out if they shouldn't go out. And that's what I've been trying to do lately, is make sure that the only emails that go out are the ones that need to happen. And I have conversations with people about that all the time. And I'm sure there are a lot of people in my organization that don't like me, but I know that others really do, because I've made change in how our emails are presented, and they look better, and they've got a higher click-through rate, and people are really responsive and positive towards them.
Cool. All right, next question. Can you elaborate on the length of your processes? How long does it take for creative development, quality control, execution, reporting, and so on?
Oh, y'all. Okay, so to get on our calendar, we have people submit what we call initiative briefs. So we have people will fill out briefs that say like the who, what, where, when, why of what they want to accomplish for a specific campaign. And those are submitted like 5-6 weeks in advance. And from there, they are calendarized and then put through the executional workflows. We have a team of channel planners, so they help orchestrate that. So there's timelines that are associated. We're using a custom-built MRM platform in Adobe Campaign to help us manage our timelines and walk things through the processes as content is routed and approved. But then for email, for my little corner of the world, it depends. So we have 2 different kinds of timelines. Our sale timeline is real fast. So you get about anywhere between 4 hours and a day to build and deploy these emails, and they're highly complex. There's a lot of targeting in them. And then about a half day for QC, and then we launch it the next morning. For our more promotional campaigns, like if you're familiar with our products, our Rapid Rewards email update and our Rapid Rewards report, those are running more on like a week-and-a-half execution timeline. So the click and saves, the sale emails are like the fast hitters and can really stress a person out. But those are our big daddies, so those get the most attention. And they require such a shorter timeline so that we can be very agile and react to the ever-changing airline market.
So when I used to work at Sears, I don't think I mentioned that prior, on the email team, and when we had 5 different teams that we worked with, which included creative, marketing, QA, we were the digital production team, so on, it took 2 weeks. At NAR, I got a request for an email this morning. I pushed it through to our digital production team. We already had the template in place in the right spot for the production team person to find it. The email's already gone out. So with the platform that we're using now, which is Adestra, it's much easier and much faster to get things out. We used to take 3 hours to do a daily news email because we manually put in news every single day, and it takes us 10 minutes now. So I've literally had an email go out in 10 minutes. Those emails aren't incredibly complex, though. They're not high image. They don't have a ton of links. There's not a lot of QA that actually needs to happen. And since I tend to be the QA person and somebody else ends up usually programming the email, I don't always check every link because the platform sort of cheats for me and checks every link for me, as well as checks it for a spam score. So I think using the right tools is very helpful.
Yeah. All right. For Southwest, I'm actually curious about this one too. Why did it take 3.5 years to switch ESPs?
Okay, so we actually started thinking about, I mentioned the MRM platform that we implemented, and that was a conversation that took place near the end of 2015. But we started thinking, like, where do we want to go in 5 years? So even though we had initial conversations about the MRM application, we started thinking about what that could feed into. And even though at that specific time we weren't doing an ESP RFP, we were really focused on that MRM piece. Who we ended up selecting as our MRM vendor, we knew was probably going to be someone we'd want to transition to for a lot of our other components as well. Now, you fast forward to all of the planning. We have a massive program that is inclusive of batch emails, all of our transactional campaigns that we fully redesigned with our new ESP launch, which I'm so proud of. And then, of course, all of our ad hoc campaigns, what we call ad hoc promotional campaigns. So it takes a lot of orchestration, but as we all know can sometimes happen, you submit a project and get the technology funding, and sometimes things happen, company initiatives will take place, and things get put on hold. So we actually took several months of a holding pattern for our project to really kick off. And so we started a lot of those technical pieces in early 2018. I should also mention, it's not just my team who had to migrate. We had to coordinate with Big T Technology at Southwest, which takes a lot of work. There are a lot of different systems that feed into our email platform. There are a lot of different people who are impacted. We have technology QMO teams. It just takes a lot of orchestration across all of these different groups to make sure that you have everything in place. So that sounds crazy. To some people in this room who have migrated, that probably doesn't sound crazy at all. You've probably been through it yourself. It's a huge labor of love. So I can tell you, whenever I finally logged out of our old ESP for the last time, it was a huge load off of my shoulders, and we will greatly miss their partnership, but are very excited for our future with our new platform as well. But yeah, it takes a village, man.
Thank you for clarifying that. How do you manage the content expectations of internal stakeholders, i.e. your colleagues? I can actually take this one. This one's near and dear to my heart because, as I was talking earlier, we sell a lot of things at Belk, and our merchandisers they're amazing. They're very close partners of ours on the email team. But if you are in charge of the shoe category, what are you going to want us to feature in email? Shoes. If you're in charge of jewelry, you want us to feature jewelry. And so I train my team, and I reinforce this all the time, to think like a customer. And one of the presenters earlier today had mentioned something about like making selfish decision making, or making decisions on behalf of your company and not on behalf of your customer. And so we at Belk take the customer very seriously. We want them to always have a seat at the table. And so when it comes to what content we're showing, we want the customer to be deciding what content they're getting. We don't want them, necessarily the merchandising team always deciding, or the promotions team always deciding, or us always deciding, but we're working to have algorithms in place that, as we learn more about you as our customer, what you're buying, what you're browsing, your psychographics, your demographics, where you live, your age, we're using that data to inform the content that you're seeing. And so when a colleague comes and says, hey, why aren't you featuring more of X? We say, well, we are featuring X, but you might not be seeing it, but the people that should be seeing it are, and just trust us. And we're very open with them about the data and the results, because numbers typically don't lie, and people are usually very open to looking at the data and having data make decisions, especially if they see that that's leading to better ROI for their business, as well as others' businesses. So.
And I'll say super quickly, because I know we're running out of time, but at Southwest we have what we call a one team, all heart mentality. And what that means is that even though there are different categories and there are different groups who are responsible to different things and different goals, we all are one company. So if we're making decisions that are going to move the needle for the company in terms of revenue and in terms of customer experience, then that is the right decision, and we all have to be team players to that. Now, part of that means that you might have to restructure a little bit in how you build goals so that they're fair to everyone, and not a specific team or a specific department is more responsible for a part of it than another. But really getting all of your department on that one team mentality is really crucial.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate your questions. Thank you, panel. Thanks.